said, empty your mind.
Hey Wing Chun Warriors, it's Master Wanish, and I had a few students ask me the other day about the Joe Rogan, Robert Downey Jr. discussion on his podcast. And I did a video about that the other day. Just wanted to tell people to go check it out. Support Robert Downey Jr. as we're all such huge fans of Iron Man. And yes, Iron Man does Wing Chun Kung Fu, if you didn't know, which is really amazing. And a few students had asked me some questions, and I just thought I'd share some of this information with you. Well, one question that was really asked was, what did he mean when Joe Rogan said, and it was nice of Joe Rogan to be very respectful and polite and say Wing Chun's an underrated art, as we've heard Joe speak not so highly of it at certain times. And I have to say, if you've seen some of the videos I've seen on YouTube, I can see why he's saying those things. Not all Wing Chun is equal, and I think he's seen a lot of bad Wing Chun. Thus, in the past, hasn't said the nicest things about it, but he was very respectful with Robert Downey Jr. And he said, it's a very underrated art. And he mentioned a UFC fighter that utilizes a lot of the trapping hands in his fight. And to which Robert Downey Jr. replied, "Oh, the mukjang, the wooden dummy." Well, so my students were a little bit confused why he said that. Now, I really think what he probably should have said was chi sao. Because within Chi Sao training, we do a lot of trapping. Chi Sao is a contact sensitivity exercise where you're basically interpreting somebody's movement through touch. And it's really a game of chess, and you do a lot of trapping. Now, there's trapping drills outside of Chi Sao, and there's wooden dummy trading. There's all sorts of aspects to Wing Chun, all sorts of pieces of the puzzle that you put together to create this one picture. Now, I think Chi Sao and trapping would have been a better, description to Joe rather than saying the mukjang, as the mukjang is the wooden dummy and there's a form on that dummy and it's not necessarily all relating to trapping clearly. So I just wanted to make that a little more clear when he mentioned that Tony Ferguson does a lot of trapping hands. Chi Sao would have been a better description in getting into the Chi Sao discussion. Now, Robert Downey Jr. also said, the mukjang, the wooden dummy, he got his butt kicked by the wooden dummy for 3 years before he quite figured that out. And, this is something I tell students on day one. The wooden dummy, here's a wooden dummy arm, right? Now, this is a piece of wood, and it's hard wood, but it's wedged into a big log it's got about a square that it's wedged into. If you were to come and strike this as hard as you can, you could probably break the arm. So the goal is not to strike these arms as hard as you can. The goal is to flow around the arms of the wooden dummy as you would do your attacker or your opponent or your training partner. So the goal is to flow around the arms. So I tell my students, don't beat up the arms, don't bang the arms, flow around the arms. Additionally, the wooden dummy is a solid log. I mean, this is a hard piece of wood here, and it's the dummy is made out of a solid log. Go out and hit, I'm not telling you to do this, but if you go out and hit a tree as hard as you can, the tree is always going to win, I promise you. So I tell my students, you can strike that dummy hard, but if you hit it too hard, you're going to wind up damaging your hands. The dummy will always win. It's a tree, it's a log, it's a hard piece of wood. So you can strike the dummy hard, but you should really be careful because it's a tree and you will hurt yourself. So flow around the arms, strike the dummy as hard as you can without hurting yourself. And right then and there, in your very first lesson, you have the knowledge necessary to not let the dummy beat you up for several years before you figure out it's not about fighting force against force. It's really about flowing around the arms of the dummy and working with the dummy and utilizing proper form as you're studying the dummy. And that dummy can be a whole nother discussion. So Chi Sao was one thing, the dummy was another thing, and then the lack of use of mouthpiece. He said they replicate fighting scenarios as close as possible, but they don't use a mouthpiece because his Sifu has really good control. My suggestion to Robert Downey Jr. would be always wear a mouthpiece when you're doing Chi Sao, blindfolded Chi Sao especially, because accidents can happen, and when you're sparring, wear that mouthpiece. More so for him than anybody, because look, he makes millions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars. his face has to stay intact, his teeth have to stay intact. And then also for me and the everyday person, you know what? Dental work's expensive. We really can't afford dental work. So it's important to keep your teeth in your mouth. And so I highly recommend at all times everybody wear a mouthpiece. Now, I am no way insulting Robert Downey Jr. or his Sifu. Highest respect to Robert Downey Jr. And like I said, I'd love, as I mentioned in the other video, I'd love to work with him, do some chi sao, do some high-level training with him. I know he's extremely dedicated to the art, and I'd love to have him over here or meet up with him anywhere in the world. I'd be there in just a heartbeat. So once again, if you're listening, feel free to reach out to me. It would be a great experience. I'd absolutely love it, and I know you would too, especially as somebody so into Wing Chun as you are. And that's about it. So just a few things I wanted to clear up from that Joe Rogan podcast and that little Wing Chun discussion that they had. And I appreciate everybody's time. If you can, take 1 second, hit that subscribe button. Yes, that subscribe button, do that now. 1-inch punch that bell notification so you don't miss out on any future videos. And I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. Thank you so much and have a great day.